You just crashed your car. Before we get to that moment, rewind about 20 minutes because that's where this story actually starts. You're on Interstate 95, heading home after a completely unremarkable workday, half listening to the radio, half thinking about what you're going to make for dinner. Traffic is moving fine. Nothing about this drive feels any different from the 100 other times you've made it. That's exactly what makes what happens next so disorienting. There's no warning, no build-up, nothing that tells you this is the day everything changes. 2 lanes over, a pickup truck suddenly swerves hard across both lanes, trying to avoid a tire lying dead in the middle of the highway. You see it happen almost in slow motion and in a fraction of a second at the same time. His truck cutting sideways, your brain screaming to brake, your foot already slamming down before you've consciously decided to do it. There's nowhere to go. The truck clips your front end, and your car spins into the guardrail hard enough that the airbag deploys into your chest like a punch. For one full second, the radio is still playing like nothing happened at all. You just crashed your car. Most people sitting in exactly the seat you're sitting in right now assume one simple thing. If you didn't cause the accident, someone else's insurance automatically pays for everything. That assumption feels obvious. It's also, in a case exactly like this one, almost completely wrong. And the next few minutes of your life are about to teach you why in real time. Your hands are still on the wheel. Your ears are ringing slightly. You check yourself first. Nothing broken, just shaken. Maybe a bruise forming across your chest from the seatbelt. You check for anyone else in the car. Everyone's okay. That relief lasts about 4 seconds before a new thought lands. Whose fault was this exactly? The truck driver hit you, but he was swerving to avoid a hazard he never created and had almost no time to react to. The tire that started all of this doesn't have a name attached to it, doesn't have an insurance policy, isn't going to answer any questions. Somewhere out there, it fell off a vehicle that's probably still driving down the interstate, completely unaware it just triggered a chain reaction behind it. The truck driver is already out of his vehicle, walking toward you, and here's the first real decision you have to make, right now, before anyone official has even arrived. If he's calm, cooperative, and the damage looks genuinely minor, no injuries, no serious damage, nothing that feels like it's going to spiral, some drivers in this exact moment consider just exchanging information and handling it privately, without ever calling the police at all. It sounds tempting, and in truth, plenty of small fender benders do get resolved this way. But here's what most people don't realize about that shortcut. Many states legally require a police report whenever damage crosses a certain dollar threshold, often somewhere in the range of $1,000 to $2,000. And given what just happened to your front end, you're almost certainly over that line, whether it looks like it or not. Skip the report here, and if this pickup driver's story quietly changes in a week, or if pain from the crash shows up 2 days from now, the way whiplash so often does, you'll have nothing official to point back to. So you call it in. Both of you agree on that much, at least. While you're waiting for the police to arrive, something is already happening that you can't see. The moment you call your own insurance company to report the crash, which, as it turns out, you're required to do promptly under most policies regardless of fault, a claims file with your name on it gets opened somewhere in a call center you'll never visit, and an adjuster you haven't met yet is about to be assigned to your case. Meanwhile, if the tire's origin is ever identified, a completely separate insurance company, one representing whatever trucking outfit lost that tire, may open its own file too, quietly preparing to argue about how much of this is actually their responsibility. You're sitting on the shoulder of I-95 with a bruised chest and you're already the subject of paperwork in at least one building you've never set foot in. Here's the legal wrinkle that makes this specific kind of crash so different from an ordinary two-car collision. And it's the first wait really moment of today. Many states recognize as something called the sudden emergency doctrine, which holds that a driver who reacts reasonably to a sudden, unavoidable hazard, a tire suddenly sitting in his lane, with no time to safely stop or merge, isn't automatically at fault just because his reaction caused a collision. If that's how this plays out, the truck driver may walk away from this almost entirely clear of legal responsibility. That doesn't mean nobody's responsible. It usually means responsibility shifts backward toward whoever's vehicle actually dropped that tire. A trucking company with a poorly maintained wheel, someone hauling an unsecured load. Federal regulations specifically require commercial carriers to inspect and maintain their vehicles to prevent exactly this kind of failure. And if that vehicle is ever tracked down or tried, its owner or insurer can be held liable. But here's the part that should genuinely worry you. Loose tire treads and stray road debris almost never come with an owner's name attached. In a large share of cases exactly like yours, that vehicle is never identified at all, and there may never be anyone the system can officially blame. That single fact is about to determine almost everything that happens to your finances over the next few months. So this is the moment to actually understand what's sitting in your own glove box, buried in a policy you probably haven't read since the day you signed it. Every state except New Hampshire legally requires drivers to carry liability insurance, split into bodily and injury liability, which pays for the other person's medical bills when you're found at fault, and property damage liability, which pays to fix their vehicle. If the truck driver were found even partially liable here, his policy would apply first. But every state sets its own minimum limits for that coverage, and those minimums vary sharply. New York requires at least $25,000 per person and $50,000 per accident in bodily injury coverage, while states including California and Virginia actually raised their minimums within the past year alone. Here's the detail that catches nearly everyone off guard the first time it happens to them. That number is a ceiling, not a promise. Even in a best-case scenario where someone is found liable, if they only carry the state minimum and your medical bills or repair costs run higher, their insurance simply stops paying the moment it hits that number, and you're left trying to recover the rest directly from a person or company that may not have the money to cover it. But in a crash exactly like yours, there's a very real chance nobody ever gets legally pinned as the at-fault party at all, which is exactly why two other pieces of your own policy matter more here than in almost any ordinary collision. Collision coverage pays to repair or replace your own vehicle, regardless of who caused the crash, minus whatever deductible you selected when you bought the policy, typically somewhere between $500 and $1,000. Uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage, usually shortened to UM or UIM, exists specifically for a moment like this one. It protects you when there's no identifiable at-fault driver, or when whoever is responsible carries no insurance or not nearly enough. Roughly half of all states actually require you to carry this coverage. In the rest, it's optional, and if you skipped it to shave a few dollars off your monthly premium, an untraceable tire in the middle of I-95 is about to become a very expensive lesson in what that decision actually meant. Here's another problem that surfaces almost immediately, and it's one almost nobody thinks about until they're the one living through it. Fault doesn't have to be all or nothing. Most states apply what's called comparative negligence, meaning if an investigation later determines you were even partly responsible, say following slightly too closely when the truck cut in front of you, whatever settlement you'd otherwise receive gets reduced by that exact percentage. Get assigned 30% of the blame, and you only recover 70% of your claim's value. A small number of states go even further, using pure contributory negligence, where being found even 1% at fault can legally block you from recovering anything at all. That single detail is exactly why the story you tell the responding officer and the story you tell your own insurance company afterward has to be precise and consistent, not just the version that feels easiest to say out loud in the moment. Unfortunately, that's still not the full picture. Even once fault gets sorted out, and even once a claim is filed, there's a clock running that most people don't discover until it's almost too late. Every state sets a statute of limitations on personal injury claims, as short as 1 year in some states, as long as 5 in others, with most falling somewhere between 2 and 3 years. Miss that filing window, even by a single day, and you can permanently lose your legal right to recover anything at all, no matter how strong the underlying case would have been. Now, about the money itself, because eventually this stops being about law and starts being about real dollar figures. Industry data from the Insurance Information Institute puts the average property damage liability claim somewhere in the range of $6,000 to $7,000, while bodily injury claims run considerably higher. More recent figures on injury settlements specifically put the typical range somewhere between $15,000 and $100,000, with minor soft tissue injuries like whiplash usually settling toward the lower end, and anything involving surgery, long-term treatment, or permanent impairment pushing well beyond it. These are national ranges, not a promise for your specific case. The real number depends heavily on which state you're in, how severe the injury turns out to be, and how much coverage is actually available to draw from. This is where a handful of mistakes quietly wreck people's claims in exactly this kind of situation, and almost nobody realizes they're making them in the moment. The first is apologizing or admitting fault at the scene, even out of pure reflexive politeness. In a comparative negligence state, those exact words can and will be used later to shift blame in your direction. The second is skipping the police report because the damage looks survivable in the first 10 minutes, which leaves you with no official documentation the day the story from the other side conveniently changes. The third is giving a recorded statement to another driver's insurance company before you've spoken to your own insurer or an attorney. Those calls sound friendly and routine, and they are almost always designed to surface any small inconsistency that can be used to reduce what you're owed. The fourth, and one of the most costly, is signing a settlement release too early. The moment you accept a quick payout and sign that document, you typically waive your right to ask for more later, even if it turns out weeks afterward that your injuries were more serious than they first appeared. And the fifth is simply waiting too long to see a doctor, because insurers routinely treat any gap between the crash and your first medical visit as evidence that whatever's wrong with you either wasn't serious or wasn't caused by this accident at all. On the other side of that same list are the things that genuinely protect you, and nearly all of them are decisions you make long before any of this ever happens. Carrying uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage, even in states where it's optional, closes the single biggest financial hole this exact scenario can expose. Photographing the scene, the vehicles, the debris, and the road conditions before anything gets moved gives you evidence a police report alone often can't capture. Getting checked by a doctor within the first day or two, even when you feel mostly fine, builds the medical paper trail that determines whether a claim gets taken seriously at all. And understanding your own state's fault rules and filing deadlines before you ever need them means you're never making a decision that shapes your financial future for the next several years while sitting shaken on the shoulder of a highway, learning the rules for the first time in the worst possible moment to learn them. So here's how this actually plays out, and it genuinely can go either way from here. Handled well. The police called regardless of how minor it looked, the scene photographed, a same-day medical visit, no premature apologies or signed or releases. A claim filed well within your state's deadline that leans on your own collision and coverage the moment it becomes clear no traceable, at-fault party actually exists. This becomes an inconvenient, stressful, but ultimately survivable financial event, exactly the kind of situation insurance was built to absorb, mystery tire and all. Handled poorly, no report because it seemed fine, an apology offered out of habit, a recorded statement given before you understood what was at stake, a doctor's visit delayed until the pain got worse 2 weeks later, or a policy with no coverage because you assumed someone else would always be there to pay. And the same 2 seconds on the interstate can turn into months of denied or disputed claims or bills that land squarely and permanently on you. You're still sitting there in the driver's seat, engine off now, watching a police cruiser's lights finally show up in your mirror, no closer yet to knowing whose name will actually end up attached to this claim. The crash itself was over in less than 2 seconds, and every part of it, the tire, the truck driver's decision to swerve rather than hit it head on, the fact that it happened to you and not the car in front of you, was completely outside your control. But nearly everything that happens to your finances from this point forward was decided long before today, back when you chose what coverage to carry, and it'll keep being decided in the next hour by what you do and don't say to the officer standing outside your window right now. The accident wasn't really anyone's fault. What it costs you always is somebody's decision, and today it's yours. That's the version of this story that plays out every single day on highways exactly like this one, to people who never saw it coming. If a video like this is useful to you, subscribing means you won't be caught off guard the next time life hands you a moment just like it. And if there's a real-life event you've always wondered about the financial side of, getting sued, losing a job, a house fire, drop it in the comments. It might be the next one we walk through.